She disappeared during a routine training swim, without a trace. Her father was told to let her go, that the ocean takes its own. But 4 years later, far from the place of search, he came across a small piece of debris, the camera his daughter was wearing on the day she disappeared. On that memory card was the truth that no one wanted to see. What exactly did this camera record, and why would almost everyone hide this video? Enjoy the story. 4 years before the mystery began to unfold, there was a young woman whose life was as radiant and powerful as the open water she adored. Emily Drake was a 23-year-old Olympic swimmer from Portland, Oregon, a city where the constant drizzle and sprawling waterways nurtured an indomitable spirit in those who lived there. From her earliest days, it was evident that Emily was different. As a child, while others played in puddles or chased after paper boats, Emily found solace and excitement in the shimmering lakes and rushing rivers. Every stroke she took in the water mirrored the rhythm of her determined heart, and it was clear that the currents of fate had chosen her to forge a unique path. Emily's rise in the swimming arena was not purely the result of natural talent. It was a triumph of relentless hard work and unwavering perseverance. Raised by her father, John Drake, a former sailor with a lifetime of oceanic tales and hard-won wisdom, Emily received more than just parental love. She inherited a legacy of resilience and honor from a man who had braved tumultuous seas and lived by a code of duty and courage. John, whose own time spent navigating the unpredictable moods of the ocean, had left him with a deep respect for its mysterious power, was both mentor and steadfast cheerleader. He instilled in Emily not only the technical skills of competitive swimming, but also a reverent passion for the open water, a place where every wave and breezy gust of salt air told a story of adventure and possibility. Emily's journey to the Olympic stage was paved with early morning practices, countless laps in community pools, and intense training sessions that tested the very limits of her endurance. The swimmer's face, often lit with a gentle smile despite the grueling regimen, mirrored both the vulnerability and courage required to compete at the highest levels. She became a beacon of hope and determination, a symbol of what it meant to chase one's dreams against all odds. Every medal, every record she shattered, was a testament to a spirit that refused to conform or yield. And yet, even though Emily's triumphs on the competitive circuit brought pride to her hometown and admiration from across the nation, her true love lay in the vast, uncharted blue of the open sea. It was no secret among those closest to her that Emily craved challenges of a profoundly different nature, a test not confined to the sterility of indoor pools and controlled environments, but one that demanded every ounce of her strength and soul. With her eyes set on her next bold venture, she began preparing for a solitary 22-mile open-water swim along the rugged coastline of California. This endeavor was not just a race against time or distance, it was a pilgrimage into the unknown, a journey aimed at merging athletic prowess with a deep, almost spiritual communion with the sea. In the quiet hours before dawn, as the Pacific Ocean whispered its ancient secrets to those who dared listen, Emily would rehearse her strokes beneath skies painted with the hues of imminent possibility. The water, ever capricious, was both her cherished arena of freedom and a formidable force that demanded respect, and it was in this duality that her destiny was woven. Her relationship with her father was the cornerstone of her story. John Drake had watched his daughter transform from a determined little girl who would gaze longingly at the vast horizon into an elite athlete with a heart as boundless as the sea. Their bond was tempered by shared struggles and tempered by loss. The absence of Emily's mother had left an indelible mark on the family, fostering a deep-seated appreciation for every moment of joy and triumph. John, a man shaped by the relentless tides of life on the water, was proud of Emily's achievements. On countless evenings as the sun set over the Columbia River, father and daughter would sit side by side, silently marveling at the glow of possibility that danced on the water's surface. For Emily, every training session, every competition, was a step toward a purposeful future. Beyond the medals and records lay a larger vision, a dream to challenge herself in nature's grandest amphitheater, to plunge into the depths of a journey that transcended ordinary acclaim. She envisioned her 22-mile swim, not just as an athletic feat, but as a testament to the human spirit's ability to rise above the mundane, to embrace the unknown with open arms and an unwavering heart. The ocean was calling her, promising both beauty and peril, and she, like many true visionaries before her, was ready to heed that call. At this point in time, Emily's life brimmed with hope, ambition, and the sense of destiny that accompanies a bright future. The world hailed her as not only an Olympic star, but as a true daughter of America, a symbol of grit, sacrifice, and the unyielding pursuit of excellence. Her journey was emblematic of the American spirit, always striving, always believing, even when the road ahead was shrouded in uncertainty. And as she prepared to set off on the greatest challenge of her young life, little did anyone know that the ripples of her destiny would one day stir a mystery that reached far beyond the crashing waves and silent depths of the sea. On a crisp California morning, with the sun barely peeking over the horizon, Emily Drake set out on what she had envisioned as the most exhilarating challenge of her athletic career. A solitary open-water swim along the rugged, wind-swept coastline, clad in her streamlined racing swimsuit and with a futuristic GoPro securely fastened to her head. Emily's determination shone as brightly as the early sunlight glinting off the restless waves. Every stroke in the inky blue water was an expression of her passion, a devotion to her sport that transcended records and championships. For her, the ocean was not just an arena for a test of endurance, but a vast, living canvas upon which she poured her dreams. As Emily ventured further from the familiar comforts of the shoreline, the pristine tapestry of morning gradually unfurled into an expansive seascape. The rhythmic pulse of her strokes, punctuated by the ever-present sound of salt and surf, merged with the steady hum of the GoPro recording her every moment. The device was not merely a tool for capturing breathtaking vistas, it was her silent witness to the raw power of the ocean, a bridge connecting her inner world to the outer realm of nature. The camera recorded every joyful burst of speed, every tranquil pause that allowed her to absorb the beauty of the open water, and even the fleeting moments when a hint of uncertainty flickered across her face. For the first 2 hours, everything unfolded like a well-rehearsed routine. Emily's GPS tracker, integrated seamlessly with her adventure gear, marked her progress along the predetermined route. It was a course that would take her along 22 grueling miles of coastline, an arduous test that was as much a mental challenge as a physical one. The early part of the journey was marked by the steady beat of her heart in sync with the ocean's cadence and an almost hypnotic focus that only a true athlete could exhibit. Passage after passage of rolling waves, the swim became almost meditative, a cyclist pedaling through the twilight of an unknown future. Then, without warning and without fanfare, the delicate equilibrium was shattered. Approximately 2 hours into her swim, her GPS signal, once a reliable beacon broadcasting her every move, vanished into the depths of the Pacific. In the vast isolation of open water, the abrupt silence of her tracking device was as startling as it was inexplicable. The last known coordinates pinpointed a remote sector of the coastline, a place where the ocean churned with unpredictable power and the currents could twist and turn in mysterious ways. Moments that had stretched into hours of graceful effort now descended into a disquieting void. Harsh sea breezes whipped the spray into a frothy chaos as life aboard the shore took on an ominous hue. When the local Coast Guard finally intercepted the distressing news, they rushed to the location indicated by the final GPS signal. Instead of finding a scene of desperate struggle or a body drifting amid the surf, the rescuers encountered only haunting remnants, a solitary fragment of what appeared to be the wreckage of a small support boat that had accompanied Emily on her journey. The vessel, battered by relentless waves, had been reduced to splintered wood and twisted metal. There was no sign of Emily herself. The water, once reflective and inviting, now carried an aura of foreboding silence, as if determined to guard its secrets. In the days that followed, local police and Coast Guard officials pieced together a grim narrative. The prevailing explanation was that of a tragic accident, a solitary swimmer overwhelmed by the treacherous conditions and ensnared by the unpredictable whims of the sea. Search operations, conducted with rigorous thoroughness, failed to locate Emily's body. The delicate traces of her existence, along with the vital recording device, a GoPro that had captured the echoes of her journey, were nowhere to be found. The authorities, constrained by standard protocols and the formidable expanse of the ocean, eventually closed the case, offering a somber conclusion that this had indeed been a fatal accident of chance. Yet behind the formal report, one person's heart continued to beat with relentless conviction that something was amiss. John Drake, Emily's father and a former sailor hardened by years at sea, had never been satisfied with the simplistic and inevitability-laden version of events. To him, the ocean was as unpredictable as it was majestic, but it also harbored mysteries that defied explanation. Despite the mounting official evidence that painted Emily's disappearance as a tragic misadventure, John's gut, refined by decades of navigating stormy waters, both literal and metaphorical, whispered that the truth lay hidden beneath layers of silence. He could not reconcile the absence of even a scrap of conclusive evidence. No body, no complete recovery of the GoPro to support the narrative of a mere accident. In the ensuing weeks, John pored over every available document, scanned satellite imagery of the area, and revisited the coastal stretch where Emily's final GPS signal had flickered out. His nights were restless, haunted by memories of his daughter's infectious laughter and the fearless determination in her eyes as she dove into the vast unknown. Every fading detail of her last recorded moments tormented him. The unbroken streak of determination in each calculated stroke, the interaction of light and water that seemed almost a benediction, and then abruptly, the silence where her digital heartbeat ceased. John knew that the answer was out there, obscured by the relentless tides and hidden in the mercurial dance of the sea's undercurrents. Even as his friends and the local community offered words of condolence and acceptance of the official story, he remained resolute. His love for his daughter was boundless, and his intuition stubbornly insisted that fate had conspired against her in a manner that far transcended a simple accident. This quiet, unyielding certainty would drive him forward on a path strewn with obstacles, determined to uncover the truth behind the mysterious disappearance of his brilliant daughter. In the years that followed, Emily's mysterious disappearance, the official narrative of an unfortunate accident, had taken root in the minds of many, but not in the heart of one man. John Drake, a weathered veteran of the sea and the devoted father of the missing Olympic swimmer, refused to accept that his daughter's fate was sealed by the indifferent tides. Each day since that fateful morning, when Emily's GPS signal had vanished and the only remnants of her journey had been found in fragments along a desolate stretch of California coastline, John had carried a heavy burden of doubt and unwavering determination. He set himself on an unyielding quest to discover the truth behind the silence of the waves. Every sunrise brought with it a new expedition along the rugged shores where Emily's final coordinates had been recorded. John would rise before dawn, his mind tormented by memories of his daughter's infectious smile and the fearless sparkle in her eyes as she embraced not only the sport of swimming, but the vast, unpredictable ocean. Clad in weathered fishing gear, a reflection of his own life spent navigating tumultuous seas, he combed through tide pools, inspected the eroded cliffs, and meticulously examined every rock and crevice that might be connected in some way to the day his daughter had vanished. To the casual observer, he might have appeared to be nothing more than an old sailor on a nostalgic journey, yet beneath that exterior burned an insatiable need for answers. John's search extended far beyond the physical boundaries of the coastline. In the solitude of his modest study, walls lined with nautical maps and faded photographs of Emily in her swimming gear, he dove deep into the digital archives of satellite imagery. Late into the night, he would sit in front of his aging computer, scrutinizing grainy images that captured the remote coastal region. He hunted for anomalies, a ripple here or a shadow there that could hint at unusual activity on that fateful day. Every so often he would scribble notes, cross-reference coordinates, and mark potential leads on a map that soon grew cluttered with the detritus of his relentless research. His notebooks filled with sketches and hypotheses, each serving as testimony to the father's belief that Emily's disappearance had been far more than a tragic accident. Along with technical research, John knew that the human element could not be ignored. He embarked on a series of informal interviews with local residents and fishermen, people who had spent their lives intimately familiar with the whims of the Pacific. Over many cups of bitter coffee in seaside diners, he listened to hushed rumors and fragmented recollections. Some spoke of a strange vessel seen offshore on that long-ago morning. Others mentioned unusual lights near a restricted area along the coast. Although these accounts were often dismissed by official channels as mere speculation, John took them as crucial pieces of a larger puzzle. Each conversation, imbued with local lore and half-forgotten memories, reaffirmed his deepest conviction. There was something hidden beneath the surface of the official report. As months turned into years, John's unyielding search began to draw public attention. Local newspapers, intrigued by the story of a determined father who refused to let his daughter become just another statistic, started featuring him in human interest pieces. Headlines such as "Father Who Won't Give Up," "The Relentless Quest for the Truth About Emily Drake," soon adorned newsstands, and his weathered face became a symbol of hope for those who believed that every life deserved a chance at truth and justice. Letters poured in from citizens across the country, many expressing their support or sharing similar experiences of loss and unanswered questions. Yet, this burgeoning public sympathy had its dark side. Law enforcement agencies, intent on preserving the original narrative of a tragic accident, gradually began sideline John. Privately, officers would avoid engaging with him, and official statements were worded carefully to avoid reopening the wounds of a case deemed closed. John felt the isolation acutely. Every polite nod on the street or cautious gaze from a former colleague of his mingled with an unspoken reprimand that his persistence was an inconvenient reminder that not all was as it seemed. But despite the bureaucratic resistance and the chill in official interactions, his resolve never wavered. He continued to document every scrap of evidence, meticulously filing away notes, photographs, and even obscure references from archival records that all hinted at irregularities on that fateful day. Late at night, as the wind moaned through his open window and the memories of his daughter danced before his eyes, John would whisper to himself, "I know you are out there, Emily. I will find you, even if it takes me every single one of my days." It wasn't just his own heart that began to resonate with his pursuit. His story ignited debates in local community meetings and on online forums. In some corners, he was hailed as the father who refused to surrender, a man who challenged both the might of the ocean and the inertia of an official story that seemed too convenient. While skeptics argued that his search was driven by sorrow and denial, many sympathizers saw it as an act of profound love, a testament to the human spirit's refusal to let go in the face of overwhelming odds. As John continued to forge new links between disparate pieces of evidence, a faded report, an overheard conversation with a retired lifeguard, a satellite image that seemed slightly off, each small breakthrough added momentum to his crusade. The relentless tides of time continued to lap at his resolve. John's days were now measured in tireless investigations, rather than the ticking of a clock. And even as he faced moments of crushing despair, when yet another potential lead dissolved into the vast anonymity of the sea, he clung steadfastly to the belief that sometimes the ocean, as mysterious as it was unforgiving, guarded truths not meant to be lost forever. The father's journey had become a beacon for those who had ever suffered an inexplicable loss. A story of a man who challenged official narratives and embraced the uncertain promise of a hidden truth. In the quiet spaces between relentless days, John Drake's voice became one of the many calling for accountability and a re-examination of events that were presumed to be accidents. His determination to understand what truly happened to Emily underscored a universal truth. When a parent's love is pitted against official indifference, the search for truth becomes not just a personal crusade, but a battle for justice. And so, amidst the ceaseless crash of waves and the enduring rhythm of the tides, John Drake pressed on, undaunted, unswerving, and forever driven by the conviction that a daughter's story was too precious to be forgotten. 4 years had passed since the day Emily Drake vanished into the relentless embrace of the Pacific, and John Drake had borne every moment since with a heavy, unyielding determination. His quest for truth had led him down countless winding paths along the California coast, yet nothing had provided clear answers. One crisp morning, with the salty wind caressing his weathered face and memories of his daughter ever fresh in his mind, John decided to take his small fishing boat to an area he had long suspected held hidden secrets. A stretch of shoreline near a decommissioned military installation that, according to local law, had remained closed to civilians. The air was cool, with a hint of fog lacing the horizon, and the once familiar coastline now brimmed with an eerie quietness that seemed to whisper of concealed truths. As John navigated through the serpentine channels of choppy water, his eyes remained vigilant, scanning not only for the abundant sea life for which he had cast his lines for years, but also for any anomaly that might stir his instincts. Memories of those countless days, spent combing the rugged tide pools and eroded cliffs, merged with the scientific determination born from years of research. He was haunted by the unresolved questions surrounding his daughter's disappearance, and each voyage was an act of defiance against a fate he refused to accept. The rumbles of waves crashing against ancient rocks and the distant cry of seabirds played a relentless symphony, the backdrop to his solitary search for anything that could illuminate the darkness of that tragic day. Then, quite unexpectedly, amid the low hum of the engine and the occasional lapping of water against his vessel, John's gaze fell upon an object bobbing listlessly in the water. It was an old buoy, its red paint peeling, the metallic structure corroded by years of relentless saltwater exposure. The buoy, tethered loosely by ropes to an unseen anchor below, seemed out of place amid the otherwise pristine natural scenery. As he drew nearer, John noticed that part of the buoy's structure appeared to be altered by something more than just time and weather. A glint of plastic caught his eye beneath the wavering surfaces, partially obscured by the play of light on the undulating tide. Curiosity mingled with the familiar sting of hope. John guided his boat closer, inching past the broken edges of the buoy, as if daring to disturb its quiet secrets. As he lowered a small net to secure the buoy, his experienced eyes passed every detail. Embedded in the rusted framework was an object that struck an almost impossible chord in his memory. Its design, the way the casing was molded, and yes, the distinctive shape of the lens, all whispered painfully familiar truths to him. With shaking hands, John retrieved the object from its watery resting place. It was a GoPro, a rugged, waterproof camera known for its durability in the harshest of conditions. In that moment, his breath hitched. The engraved model and its conspicuous design were unmistakable. This was the very camera Emily had worn on the day of her disappearance. Tears welled in his eyes, mingling with the sea spray, as he marveled at the improbability of this discovery. Against all odds, after years of futile searches and unanswered prayers, a tangible piece of Emily had re-emerged from the depths. The plastic casing, though weathered and scarred by the relentless assault of the ocean, still held its structure, a silent monument to the day when her struggle against the powerful currents had possibly been recorded. John cradled the camera close to his chest, his mind awash with memories of his daughter's infectious laughter and the radiant hope that had always burned in her eyes. It was as if the universe had finally decided to return to him a fragment of the past, a long-lost relic that could hold the key to unraveling the mystery. Without delay, John hurried back to shore with the camera secured safely among his personal belongings. Once home, in the quiet solitude of his makeshift study, walls lined with nautical charts and photographs capturing Emily in moments of triumph, he carefully powered the device on. With trembling anticipation, he navigated through its menu and accessed the memory card. The storage was pristine, untouched by the ravages of time. Here lay his daughter's recorded perspective on that unforgettable day, a silent witness to events that no one had truly understood. John's heart pounded as the video began to play. At first, the screen displayed familiar scenes of calm blue water and the gentle sway of the horizon. But then subtle anomalies began to catch his attention, almost imperceptible disruptions in the frame. A distant shape, fleeting across the water, cast a shadow that did not belong to the natural rhythm of waves. In another segment, the camera's orientation wavered sharply, as if responding to an unseen urgent stimulus. There were brief moments when Emily appeared to change her course abruptly, her once uniform strokes faltering as if startled by something. Each clip was a puzzle piece, hinting that her final moments were marked by something unforeseen, something that was not merely an accident of nature. As John watched in a blend of hope and growing dread, the evidence on screen began to form an ominous, cohesive picture. The video did not capture a smooth, ordinary swim ending in tragedy. Instead, it revealed a sequence where an unidentified boat, its silhouette stark against the vast ocean, emerged in the periphery. The dark vessel loomed ominously, and in subsequent clips, Emily's behavior changed dramatically, her focus shifting from the serene expanse of the sea to a frantic, almost desperate navigation away from the approaching threat. In that quiet study, with the screen flickering the images of his beloved daughter, John realized that the disappearance that had haunted him for so long was not a random act of nature, but part of an enigmatic sequence of events. The discovery of the camera, his unexpected inheritance from the depths, was far more than a mere accident. It was a beacon of truth waiting to be unraveled. His heart, already heavy with grief, now beat with the fierce urgency of a man who had been given one last chance to uncover the real story behind Emily's fate. That night, as John Drake sat alone in the dim glow of his study, the recovered GoPro lay before him like a forgotten message from the deep. With trembling fingers, he inserted the memory card into his aging laptop and pressed play. At first, the video offered nothing more than the serene panorama of the Pacific, a seemingly endless blue canvas speckled with sunlight, the gentle rise and fall of waves, and the occasional distant cry of gulls. It was the familiar sight of the open water that had defined Emily's passion and the very essence of her swimming days. For several minutes, the footage exuded an almost hypnotic calm, as though time itself had slowed to honor the quiet majesty of the sea. Then, subtle differences began to emerge. In a seemingly ordinary clip, the camera captured the turquoise clarity of the morning as it danced upon the undulating ripples, but amid that tranquility, an auditory shift slowly crept in. A barely perceptible hum, like a distant engine, or perhaps the low murmur of something mechanical submerged beneath the sound of lapping waves. John rewound the footage repeatedly, his eyes focusing intently on frames that had once seemed inconsequential. With each pass, the bizarre sound grew more distinct, intruding upon the initial serenity with an unsettling dissonance. As the video progressed, a moment arrived that froze John in his tracks. In one particular segment, Emily's steady and rhythmic strokes faltered abruptly. The scene, which had originally depicted her effortless movement through water, now captured her pausing mid-swim. Her breath, audible through the sound of the water, quickened in a staccato rhythm, betraying a sudden surge of alarm. For the first time in the recorded journey, it was clear that something was amiss. The camera, still clinging to her head, swiveled to reveal a shape far off in the distance. A lone boat whose silhouette was obscured by the vastness of the ocean and the haze of early light. There were no identifying markers on the vessel. It was a dark, nearly featureless form that emerged silently as if it had always been waiting in the periphery. Emily's head turned slightly toward the looming presence. In that split-second exchange between instinct and fear, the rhythm of the waves was disrupted. The camera captured her eyes widening, her body tensing as if she was suddenly aware of a danger lurking just beyond the horizon. In rapid succession, the footage depicted her altering her course, her path shifting with a frantic urgency that starkly contrasted with the grace she had shown previously. Each powerful stroke now carried the desperate cadence of someone in flight, the once fluid motion replaced by erratic bursts, meant to quickly distance herself from the menacing silhouette of the boat. The tension escalated further as the video neared its climax. The ambient sounds of water and wind were now interspersed with rapid, almost panicked inhalations. In a series of quick cuts, the GoPro recorded Emily's mounting anxiety, a visceral sense of urgency conveyed by her changing breathing pattern and the shakiness of the camera as her body convulsed with a blend of determination and fear. Then, in the final sequence, the frame became a blur of chaotic motion. The camera's orientation spun wildly as if buffeted by unseen forces or rapid, unsteady strokes. The distant boat remained ominously present, now closer and more imposing. In those fleeting seconds, as Emily's strokes became desperately erratic, the boat's shadow loomed larger, its presence undeniable and chilling. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the recording ended. The last frame, a jarring moment of sheer panic, where the image blurred into darkness, faded out, leaving behind an echoing silence on the screen. John sat motionless, the weight of the revelation pressing down on him like a physical force. This was no ordinary accident, beset by natural misfortune. The evidence painted a far different narrative, one where the calm facade of an open water swim had been violently shattered by an external presence. The implications were staggering. Emily's recorded final moments suggested that she had not succumbed passively to the whims of the ocean. Instead, she appeared to have encountered something or someone that prompted her to act in a burst of desperate urgency. John felt a turbulent mix of emotions: sorrow for the loss of his talented daughter, relief that her final moments were preserved on film, and a growing spark of determination to expose the truth of that fateful day. The video was a record that held the potential to unravel the official tale of a tragic accident and to uncover a deeper, darker conspiracy hidden beneath layers of silence. With the evidence now in his hands, John knew that the truth was within reach. What he had seen on that screen was not just a simple accident. It was an announcement that his daughter's disappearance had been orchestrated by forces unknown, a secret that someone had desperately tried to keep hidden. In that quiet, tear-stained room, the haunting images flickering on the screen transformed from isolated moments into an unassailable testament. They were a message from the deep, an encoded truth that challenged the accepted explanation. The footage underwent countless viewings by John, each repetition reawakening the hope that he might finally piece together the puzzle of Emily's last swim. It was evidence that demanded further investigation, an investigation that would shake the foundations of the official narrative and force a reckoning for those who had sought to cover up the truth. When John Drake finally decided that his desperate search for answers could no longer be contained beneath the tide of official dismissals, he turned to the one medium that could force the truth into public light: the media. Clutching the salvaged GoPro, like a fragile token of both hope and horror, he approached independent journalists, renowned for their tenacity in challenging accepted narratives. In a modest press conference held in a local community center near the coast, John disclosed every detail: the countless hours spent combing the rocky shoreline, the dozen nights poring over satellite images, and the painstaking detective work that had led to the discovery of the camera on a rusted buoy. He revealed that the recordings on the device did not support the story of a simple accident. Rather, they hinted at a far more sinister reality. The footage painted an unsettling picture: Emily's apparent determination, her sudden, desperate change in course, and most damning of all, the ominous presence of an unidentified boat, lurking consistently in the background. This vessel, with its unmarked, nondescript hull, appeared at precisely the moment when Emily's smooth rhythm faltered. The camera captured not only the beauty of the open ocean, but also uncanny moments that defied the laws of chance. Experts who reviewed the video in the ensuing days noted anomalies, irregular audio frequencies, reminiscent of engine murmurs that were out of place for a lone swimmer in open water, and abrupt changes in camera angle and movement that suggested an external disturbance. John's impassioned revelations stirred a tempest across the local news cycle. Independent journalists began investigating alongside him, digging into a trove of archived records and satellite data that hinted at forbidden activities in the vicinity of the restricted coastal zone. Eyewitness accounts from local fishermen previously dismissed as folklore or exaggeration, were re-examined. One retired lifeguard recalled an unusual vessel navigating close to the military's no-entry area on that fateful morning, a memory that until then had been regarded as a mere anecdote. Another seasoned sailor spoke of ghost ships that the locals whispered about, appearing only on days that carried secrets. Soon what was once a closed and dusted case of a tragic accident began to morph into a narrative laden with covert operations and deliberate concealment. The emerging evidence forced a public reckoning. Several independent analysts uncovered records indicating that on that very day, secret military training exercises were being conducted behind closed doors near a decommissioned base. These clandestine maneuvers, conducted under the guise of routine coastal security, were never publicly disclosed. According to leaked observations from former military personnel, a boat masquerading as a civilian craft had been utilized as a cover for these operations. The onboard apparatus of this vessel, it turned out, matched the vague descriptions that had surfaced from obscure sources, and its silhouette in the video was far too deliberate to be the work of random maritime traffic. The revelations ignited fierce debates online and in the halls of local government. John Drake was invited to appear on talk shows and in newspapers, where he laid out his case with a combination of raw emotion and the meticulous detail of a seasoned investigator. "My daughter did not vanish by accident," he declared in an interview with an independent news outlet, his voice both tremulous with grief and steeled by resolve. "There is clear, undeniable evidence that she encountered something or someone that changed the course of her final moments, and it is our duty to uncover that truth, no matter how deeply it has been buried." Military spokespeople and local officials were quick to dismiss the allegations. A representative for the military claimed that no secret operations had occurred on that day, and that the unidentified boat was merely a routine patrol vessel, unconnected to any covert activity. However, their statements only deepened the suspicions of the public. Social media platforms soon exploded with petitions demanding that investigations be reopened. Hashtags like phrases decorated online banners, albeit without using the forbidden symbol in this recounting, as civic groups, human rights advocates and outraged citizens joined forces to force a review of the case. A breakthrough came when an independent journalist with a background in maritime investigations produced satellite imagery and radar data indicating unusual vessel movements near the restricted area on the morning Emily disappeared. The images, when synchronized with the timestamps from the GoPro footage, showed an inexplicable convergence of a dark, nondescript boat in close proximity to Emily's recorded route. Analysis of the radar signals revealed sporadic transmissions that did not match the transmissions from known commercial or patrol vessels. Instead, they bore the hallmarks of technology being used to mask or override standard communication protocols, techniques familiar only to well-funded covert operations. As this new evidence converged, the narrative became inescapable. Someone had a vested interest in ensuring that the true circumstances surrounding Emily's disappearance remained hidden. Whether it was an unaccountable military experiment or an organized operation enforced by shadowy forces, the fact remained that the official version of a tragic accident could no longer hold water in the face of the mounting inconsistencies. With pressure mounting from within and without, law enforcement was forced, after years of reluctance, to reopen the case. A public inquiry was announced, and the independent findings were handed over to a special investigative team composed of civilian experts, veteran investigators, and representatives of transparency watchdogs. John was invited to testify before a parliamentary committee dedicated to uncovering the truth, where he recounted every painstaking detail of his discovery, every sleepless night, and every piece of evidence that pointed to a cover-up. His testimony, delivered with quiet ferocity and unyielding love for his daughter, struck a chord with lawmakers and ordinary citizens alike. The revelation of secret military training exercises and the possible use of a disguised civilian vessel as a cover only added layers of intrigue to the case. The investigation turned its focus to the obscure connections between the closed-off military zone and reported anomalies in coastal traffic on that morning. The evidence began to form a disturbing collage, a covert operation operating in the shadows, an abduction that was orchestrated rather than accidental, and a daughter whose final moments were marred by an encounter too complex to be left to the whims of nature. In that relentless quest for truth, the brave voice of a grieving father emerged as a beacon, a call to action, a repudiation of silence. John Drake had uncovered a record that could topple official narratives and force powerful institutions to answer for their secrets. The somber glow of his laptop screen, reflecting on his tear-stained face as the footage played on loop, was a silent promise that the truth, however obscured, would not be forever drowned beneath the waves. In the weeks that followed, the explosive revelations from Emily Drake's recovered GoPro footage, an unstoppable force of public outcry and media attention, began to reshape the narrative that had once been accepted as the tragic accident of a gifted swimmer. The evidence, with every harrowing frame, had ignited a social media campaign under the banner "Justice for Emily." Across platforms, hashtags and rallying cries, without using the forbidden symbol, spread like wildfire. Ordinary citizens, former athletes, and grieving parents from across the nation joined together to demand answers. Support poured in from every corner, as thousands shared the video and their own stories of loss, uniting in a movement that could no longer be silenced. For many, the campaign was a resounding declaration that no official story, no matter how polished or convenient, could bury the truth forever. When a daughter's voice, captured on film, cried out from the depths, the sheer weight of such public demand could not be ignored. Under mounting pressure from relentless citizens and independent watchdogs, law enforcement agencies were forced to take another look. What had once been dismissed as a fateful accident was abruptly reopened as a full-fledged investigation. Senior officials, now compelled by a chorus of heartfelt voices and damning evidence, scrambled to reassemble the case. Alongside them, independent experts, veteran maritime investigators, and even former military personnel lent their considerable expertise, piecing together the clues laid bare by the mysterious footage. The images of an unmarked, dark vessel approaching Emily, combined with the irregular signals from hidden radar scans, were too significant to ignore, and soon an official inquiry was announced to unearth the truth behind that fateful day. Amid this maelstrom of re-examination, John Drake, Emily's steadfast father, emerged as the ultimate symbol of resilience and determination. No longer confined to the margins as a grieving relic with burdens too heavy to bear, he became a prominent figure in the fight for justice. His story was broadcast on talk shows and featured in deeply resonant op-eds across national newspapers. Finally, the day came when John was invited to speak before Congress, representing not only his personal quest for the truth, but also the voices of countless parents who had experienced unexplained loss. Standing before a somber gathering of legislators and citizens, his weathered face lit by the passion of a lifetime dedicated to finding answers, John recounted each painstaking moment, from the day Emily disappeared to the discovery of the battered buoy and the recovered camera that held her final desperate moments. In his testimony, John's words flowed both with grief and with defiant resolve. "My daughter did not simply vanish into the sea," he declared, his voice reverberating through the halls of Congress. "She was taken from us, hidden away by forces that believed this tragedy should remain untold. Today I stand before you as a father who refused to give up, as a man who searched the shores and braved the tumultuous waves until I found a piece of her, a digital echo of her final existence that now speaks for her. I ask you, how many more must be lost in silence before we as a society stand up and demand the truth?" His words struck deep, resonating with lawmakers and inspiring urgent calls for a comprehensive, transparent inquiry into the incident, one that would not allow any stone to remain unturned in search of the truth behind the covert operations near that restricted military zone. In the wake of John's stirring address, momentum for reform began to build. Grassroots organizations formed coalitions demanding not only the reopening of Emily's case, but also sweeping changes to enhance transparency and accountability in military and coastal operations. Public hearings were scheduled and investigative committees were convened, ensuring that this long-buried mystery would finally be dismantled piece by piece. As pressure mounted and more whistleblowers began to emerge with corroborative evidence, including testimonies from former guards and technicians familiar with secret training maneuvers, it soon became evident that Emily's disappearance had been manipulated. The damning presence of that unidentified boat was no incidental anomaly, but rather a deliberate element in a greater, hidden strategy to obscure the truth. In the final moments of this unfolding saga, John Drake's voice reached millions. His impassioned cry became not only a battle anthem for his lost daughter, but a rallying call for all who had ever been silenced by injustice. "My daughter is not lost," he proclaimed in a closing statement at a nationwide press conference, his eyes glistening with both sorrow and fierce hope. "She was hidden, and for too long her truth was kept beneath layers of deceit. But today we have reclaimed her memory. Today the truth captured all those years ago, in a single video file from the depths of the ocean, cuts through the darkness. The truth will no longer drown beneath the waves. It will shine, illuminating every corner, until justice is served." As his words echoed across the assembly, the legacy of a brave Olympic swimmer and the indomitable spirit of a grieving father merged into a beacon of transformative change, a reminder that true courage is measured not by rigid adherence to protocol, but by the willingness to look into the heart of an enigma and bring its secrets into the light. And so, in that defining moment, the truth once concealed beneath the endless blue finally emerged, promising that the legacy of Emily Drake and the unyielding love of her father would forever serve as a testament to the invincible power of the human spirit. Subscribe if you believe that one voice rising from the depths of loss and despair can shatter the silence of corruption and bring forth a tide of truth that nothing, not even the relentless sea, can submerge. And share in the comments, what lengths would you go to for truth when a loved one's final moments demand to be